Hello, welcome into another Steelers Saturday sit down here with Around the 412. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Tyler Weeks. How we feeling, pal?
Man, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Coming off of two losses, yeah, you'd think I'd be feeling worse, but honestly, this week has felt so weird to me as a Steelers fan because I feel like I've hardly been distracted by the actual game itself, and I've been distracted by more so all of the drama surrounding the Steelers and
Mm.
George Pickens and the offense. And that has been weird this week because I don't know if you feel the same, but I have felt like the Steelers are just trying to deceive Steeler fans into thinking everything is okay based off of like Arthur Smith's comments talking about how George's limited snap counts against the Cowboys. He went back to whenever he was with the Titans and was talking about how I did that with Derrick Henry and I did that with AJ Brown.
Mm.
And to me, that's just all deception to like a bigger problem of what's going on. And so I know this is supposed to be previewing the Raiders show, but like all this week, I've thought about and talked about how the George Pickens and the locker room and the coaching staff, like that is such a deep, it's happening at a deeper level than what the Steelers are trying to show on the surface. And I just feel like it's very deceiving. Like there's a scene in Star Wars, which movie is it? It's I forget which one it is, but there's a scene in Star Wars where someone says lies, deception, every day more lies, and that's just how I feel from the Steelers right now. It's at least for anything involving George Pickens, and that's all I've thought about. But for this Raiders game, I do feel good this week for a few reasons. I feel like this is a game that has the opportunity for the Steelers defense to get back on track to what we were used to in the first few weeks. I think that this is an opportunity to see potential in better offense this week. We'll see how they operate that way, but I'm feeling good going into the Raiders. I know it's another road game, but I think that the Steelers have an opportunity this week to get back on the right track.
Yeah, I know the Steelers beat the Raiders last year on Sunday Night Football. They tend to struggle. I don't know if it's the trip though, or exactly what it is. I mean, it is a hard trip to make. Going all the way over there. So I'm not sure. They're heading there today. I thought
Have
you
they
were
ever
going to
played the
say,
Raiders in Vegas though?
go ahead.
They've always played
Yeah,
in
they played them
Oakland.
last year. No, they played them
Oh,
last year
was
on
it?
Sunday Night Football.
Oh, okay, that was in Vegas. Okay,
And they won that game. So that's what I was saying is, I mean, I know,
well, that's true.
recent history is on their side in terms of that trip to Vegas, but historically, at least in our lifetime, they've always struggled going there. Even if they win, like it's not like even if it's like a 2-win Raiders team, the Steelers will win by like a field goal. So
Remember when they
we'll
lost
see.
to Terrell
Uh,
Pryor?
yeah, I do. I do remember that. Unfortunately. Um, I thought you were going to say though that the headlines have kind of been dominated by injuries, and that's why you haven't been, dwelling on the loss to the Cowboys so much as that. Because early in the week, like it's kind of rare to see what like 7 guys listed as out and doubtful. Right at the beginning of the week on Tomlin Tuesday, he comes out and says that. Man, you don't see it happen too often though, where Jalen Warren was listed as doubtful on Tuesday, and then practiced throughout the week, and now doesn't even have an injury designation. So we're getting Jalen Warren
Mhm.
back tomorrow against the Raiders. How big is that, do you think? Because we've talked about Najee. Don't get me wrong, I think that he struggled for sure. I think a lot of that, and I'm not trying to like take blame away from him. I do think he's playing not even close to 100% right now. So how big could getting Jalen Warren back, even if he's not 100% too, to at least be able to divvy up those reps?
I mean, I think it could be huge just because, like you said, Jalen Warren or Najee Harris, excuse me, we knew he wasn't healthy going into that Dallas game. It seemed very evident during the game that was the case. And what they did with Jonathan Ward and Aaron Shamklin, I just don't think that they divvied up the reps enough to really make the run game effective. And maybe that's just because those guys are inexperienced. Those guys aren't up to the level of what the Steelers want in their run game. And we talked about earlier this week how we expected, based off of Najee still probably being injured and seeing what those guys had, that maybe Jonathan Ward or Shamklin, whoever they decided, could get some more elevated reps. Well, if Jalen Warren's back, I'm sorry to those two, but he's going to be taking those reps, even if he is still a little bit banged up. And I think that it's time for Jaylen Warren to have a good game. Obviously, he's coming off of an injury, so we'll see if that actually happens. But he came off an injury to start the season, hasn't really done much in this his limited time. I think that the Steelers could really benefit from a Jaylen Warren game and him to being able to take over that backfield, catching passes out of the backfield. I think that that's much needed for the Steelers run game right now because honestly, the Steelers, when it comes to running the football, have been pretty one-dimensional, and it's been Justin Fields or nothing because they're pretty much averaging maybe 2 yards a carry on every other running back that they have. They're not getting a ton of production there. They're not scoring from there unless it is Justin Fields. They're very one-dimensional as far as who is running the football effectively. If they can get another guy like Jaylen Warren back, get him some more snaps this week, I think that could open things up for not just the run game, but more of the offense.
Yeah, what's interesting too with the running back thing is they're promoting Jonathan Ward again this week, even though now Jalen doesn't have an injury designation, and then you have Champlin on the 53. Obviously, you have Najee. Are they going to roll into this game with 4 backs stressed out of their 53? I mean, it just seems odd, but I guess maybe because there's some level of caution still with Jalen, like they want to see how he responds. So even though he's not going in with an injury designation, like they want to have that other back as insurance there. But it's funny because like this is the week where the helmet math was for sure on Roman Wilson's side to get a helmet. Like because they weren't even going to have, they were going to have like one healthy scratch, like Matt Sharping, the extra offensive lineman, was probably going to be like the only healthy scratch with how many injuries they have. They placed the Marvin Leal on the IR today. But other than that, it was like just injured guys that they were going to have as their scratches. And it was like, well, Roman Wilson's got to get a helmet now. If they're going to have 4 backs stressed, I mean, I'm not, this was the week I was predicting Roman Wilson gets a helmet. I'm not saying I'm fully off that, but that is the way that wouldn't work out then, is if they are going to dress 4 backs.
Yeah, I just want to know why they dress 4 backs. I guess if the confidence in Jaylen Warren is questioned a little bit, and as far as how healthy he actually is, like he might not have an injury designation, but like how much are they actually going to use him if they limit his reps? I guess that could be a reason why. But we saw last week, even with 3 backs, with Ward and with Champlin, if Najee's in there, that they didn't get a ton of reps. So if you're having 4, I'm not sure what at least one of those guys on the back end is going to do. I don't really understand that, considering last week you pretty much saw a similar scenario and Najee still got 90% of the snaps as far as running backs go. So I'm curious to see what that happens. Unfortunate for Roman Wilson if that's going to be the case, that he just doesn't get another helmet. Also, someone attacked in the comments that like we just don't talk about Roman Wilson, or that we just don't think he's good. On last week on this week's episode of Around the 412, the Steelers show. And I just wanted to say, and I responded to it on our YouTube channel, but also I just want to say we don't think Roman Wilson is a bad player, but at the same time,
how do you have any opinion of him right now?
Exactly. like they basically said like we talk as if Roman Wilson is like chopped liver basically, and that he's not good. And we don't have any opinion of him, but it's on him to, one, earn a hat, like get that helmet and play on Sunday. But also, he's a rookie, so why would we have high expectations of a 3rd-round rookie right now? Like it's a
rookie that wasn't able to take part in physical contact at all in training camp. I mean, it's nothing against him. It's nothing that he did wrong.
Yeah,
he was not able to get a single day in pads. Like, so how do you even, and you look at him physically, you saw the clips of him running routes and stuff. It just doesn't look like him. He's a very explosive player. And at least right now, he doesn't look like that explosive player because of what that high ankle sprain did to him. I mean, that's a very, like, other than breaking something, and even in some cases breaking something, tearing something, this is one of the worst injuries a football player can suffer because of how it's going to impact them even when they are like physically back. They're not all the way back. So could he play? Yes. Is he going to be anywhere close to the Roman Wilson that he would have been prior to this injury? Physically, no. And I don't know when he's going to be, but very clearly he's not right now. So I don't know. I don't know how you have any expectations for what Roman Wilson's going to be. I didn't have that high of expectations for what he was going to be all this year. But now it's looking more and more like, I don't want to call it a complete redshirt year. Maybe he gets some games in at some point. But like, I've really started looking at like 2025 as to when he could actually contribute to this team.
Yeah. So I found the comment. It's from Jeff Hewitt 2819. And it says, Tyler, you okay?
We did a lot of we did a lot of comments from Jeff, whether it be on Around the 412. I believe he also watches Steelers Afternoon Drive. That's probably honestly how he found us. We appreciate the comment, by the way.
This is not a shot at your comment. I appreciate the comment, but I want to give my side of that comment as well. So it's revolving around the wide receiver talk. It was, Tyler, you're okay with the 33-year-old Hopkins and not going to say anything about Roman Wilson?
He called you out specifically. Never mind.
Both of you act like he's a practice squad talent. IDK, maybe the Michigan champion receiver is. All I said back was, I'm 100% okay with DeAndre Hopkins. The need for receivers that raise your floor is clear. Like, if DeAndre Hopkins, and I mean, there's several other receivers out there that the Steelers could get that would raise the Steelers' floor for their receivers, but he is one of them. And I think Roman Wilson could be good, but he has a lot to prove, which includes getting a helmet on Sunday. Believe me, I want him to be good, and the Steelers need him to be, but he's a rookie, and I don't think expectations to be that high right away for him. I mean, that's pretty much what we just said. Like, there's just not a lot. I don't know how I have any expectations for Roman Wilson right now, because there's just nothing to go off of unless you want to go back to his college tape. That's
and here's the thing, like, all that said, I would be giving him a helmet, like, because I want him to get wet at the NFL level, and obviously, like, with what they're getting from the receiver room, there's not guys that should be preventing him from getting a helmet.
100%. 100%.
A lot of people talk about Van Jefferson being the guy, but like, the problem there is he doesn't play that spot. Like, people think receiver and it's all just within one group, but it's not. If Roman Wilson can't play on the outside, he's not going to take a helmet away from Van Jefferson. So he needs to take a helmet away from Scotty Miller or Calvin Austin. Like, that's how he gets gets a helmet, unless you're going to roll with 5 and 3 of those guys be like exclusively slots. So he's in a tough spot in terms of that. So, but this could be the week. We'll see. I'm just done predicting that it's going to happen at this point, because now it looks like they could potentially dress 4 running backs. Speaking of that, though, I want to start to dive into some individual matchups within this game. You mentioned the off the field stuff with George going on throughout this week, but let's talk about the on the field stuff with George, because on the surface, this looks like a matchup that he could certainly get the better of against this Raiders secondary. 1, they don't like to tackle. 2, they're pretty small. Jacorian Bennett, Jack Jones, absolutely rail thin. They're smaller corners. And then Nate Hobbs is probably their best corner, like, pretty much exclusively plays in the slot, and you can kind of, steam around where he's going to be. So this on the surface looks like it should be a game for George Pickens, as long as you can keep him invested in this one. What like, Derek's predicting a big game for 14. Where are you at?
I don't know, because I don't know where the coaching staff's head is at. That's really where I'm looking at it is. And I know, like I said in the beginning, take Arthur Smith's comments, I take it with a grain of salt. I feel like this is just a different situation than that. Like, when I look at what Derrick Henry and AJ Brown were doing back in 2019, 2020, I don't think anybody was questioning their effort like they are George Pickens right now. So when it comes to how the offense is going to operate with him, like, yeah, obviously, if the offense wants to operate to the best of their ability, that involves George Pickens giving 100% effort, and he's in on like 90% of the offensive snaps. But I don't think that that's going to be the case. And
no.
I don't think that he's going to give 100% effort, unless it's like to spite everybody talking about him, or to spite the coaching staff. I don't know. It's interesting. I think that there's a big opportunity for him. And I know the Raiders are giving up like over 200 yards passing a game. So seeing who we're throwing the ball to, George having a big game would make a ton of sense. But I'm very uncertain of how I feel about George Pickens and his future on the Steelers in some of these upcoming games, because I don't know how limited he's going to be snap wise. Like, is he going to be in the doghouse still, or is he going to even try? That's another thing. It's like, is he going to actually be running his routes? Is he going to actually run a fake route on a run play? Like, what are we expecting from George Pickens from that side of it? Because if he's playing 100%, I think he could have a big game against the Raiders, but is he going to be playing to his full capability?
I think so. I think we're in a constant circle. We're just in a cycle with George Pickens right now, and we're at the point now where there's a bunch of questions about his work ethic. The same thing happened last year, and then what did he do? He had a massive game against Cincinnati. did the, shut your ears and people
Mhm.
talking gestures and stuff like that. I think that we're just going to continue to do this. But I think that starts with him having a big game now, people being like, you know what, all's well and good. This is just George being George. You got to kind of just put up with it. This is the production he's going to have. And we're just constantly going to go in this loop. But right now, based off the stage that we were just at, I think now it's time that he has a big game. And we do see that effort. Your point about the snaps, played 60 snaps, which was 86% of the team snaps against Indy. The other percentages from highest to lowest, this is in week by week, but 86% of the snaps, 77, 74, 68, 59. 59% of the offensive snaps last week against Dallas. I mean, I think so for the most part, he's kind of been within that same range. I'd say probably like 70% is a good number for the high or low. We'll see how that works out. Boston, I forgot Boston is in Vegas. AB will be in Vegas. Maybe he can suit up opposite of George. Yeah, that would be good. Get those two around each other. I'm curious to see how that would go. Everything just might spontaneously combust if those two are in the same room. But no, I do think that you get a dominant George performance in this game. Kind of going hand in hand with that is Justin. Man, Sunday night, huge game for Justin because Russell Wilson healthy enough to operate as the number 2. He's kind of breathing down his neck. Justin doing and saying all the right things this week. I thought he was very impressive in talking about his situation and understanding where he's at and that he can only control what he can control. I think Sunday night is a massive test, maybe the biggest game of Justin's career, you could argue. It really shouldn't come down to one performance deciding who's going to be the starting quarterback, but I genuinely believe that's what we're in store for on Sunday night.
Yeah, this is kind of Justin's make or break game with the Steelers. We have kind of gone back and forth with a lot of his performances. Like after the Chargers in week 3, we were all bought in and we felt really good about his future. And then we had those games against the Colts and Dallas that kind of brought us back to earth a little bit. This is going to be huge for Justin Fields. And you got to figure if we are expecting other people in the Steelers offense to have a big game, especially someone like George Pickens that plays receiver, you would expect a similar outcome for Justin Fields. But this is do or die for him as far as the Steelers starting quarterback goes. I feel like the whole season, no matter what fans have felt, Mike Tomlin has probably kept the same thought process in his head that if Russell Wilson is ready to go, I'm ready to hand the keys over to him. Not necessarily that he was always going to, but he is ready to hand the keys to Russell Wilson. If Justin Fields struggles in this game, I think that next week you could be looking at Russell Wilson as the starting quarterback. But if Justin Fields has a big game, it'll be interesting to see if both are fully healthy, what decision ends up being made. Because like I said, we've gone back and forth with Justin Fields, whether he should be the starter, whether Russell Wilson would be the starter whenever he gets back healthy. If by next week they're both fully healthy and Justin Fields has a good game against the Raiders, you're going to see Mike Tomlin's full intentions on display, whether he thinks Russell Wilson or Justin Fields should be the starter. Because regardless, if he has a bad game, it's an easy decision. You go back to Russell. If he has a good game, that's putting Mike's back against the wall, and Tomlin has to actually make a decision on who he thinks should be the starter going forward. That's probably a tough decision he's going to have to make if Justin Fields looks good.
It is, and I'm glad I'm not the one making the decision, and I can just be a fan. I don't know. I like I said at the beginning of the year, it was Justin for me. I don't see a way to now go away from that, at least as of yet. But we'll see if that's the way that the team feels about it, depending on his performance and the team's performance on Sunday. Offensive line, tough matchup for Broderick Jones this week, and that's an understatement. Max Crosby, who's been dealing with some injuries, but, I mean, he played last week. He missed a couple of days of practice this week before getting back out there on Friday. Don't believe he has any injury designation, but he's going to play even if he did. He lines up in some, like he'll move him around a little bit, but primarily rushes over the right tackle. So Broderick Jones is going to have his hands full on Sunday. I just mentioned it's like the biggest game of Justin Fields' career potentially. This is certainly up there for Broderick Jones as well with that matchup.
Yeah, as far as the matchup goes, 100%. I mean, he's going against an elite edge rusher, and I want to have the confidence in Broderick Jones that he will keep Justin Fields safe. We'll see if it actually happens. The benefit
you'll see a lot of Darnell Washington helping out on that side.
Yeah, the benefit that that Broderick Jones has, over Justin Fields in this case is there's nobody necessarily breathing down his neck to take his spot. So regardless of what happens with Broderick Jones,
you don't think they're willing to turn the keys over to Spencer Anderson or Max Sharping?
You know,
Dylan Cook working his way back.
I don't think so. So that's the benefit that Broderick has. That even if he has a bad game, there's nobody that's going to take him out the following week. But yeah, it's going to be a tough test. I think you will see some Washington help on that side. I feel like it makes sense. Why put yourself into a poor situation whenever you can just overload that side most of the time? But yeah, that's a matchup that I was looking at. There's several matchups that I think are going to be interesting this week. Like I think that looking at Jeremiah Moon on what's their right or their left tackle's name?
Colton Miller's good player.
He's also allowed 6 sacks on the season.
Yeah, that's why I should say he's been a good player. I don't know if this year's just like a downfall for some reason.
He has allowed 14 pressures and 6 sacks through the first 5 games. I know we weren't all overly impressed with Jeremiah Moon's snaps that he got against Dallas, but there could be a good opportunity for him to get some pressure in this game, and they're going to need it because they're without Herbig, they're without Leal, they were without Highsmith. Pretty much
Leal
everybody
done for the season, by the way.
Leal done for the season. Everybody that we thought was going to be the depth of this edge rushing room, pretty much out. So you're up with TJ and Jeremiah Moon to handle that down. So I'm curious to see if that matchup, another matchup like not Broderick Jones, we already talked about him, Brock Bowers, against, I guess, there's just the Steelers defense. I don't know if it's going to be, is it going to be more Deshaun Elliott? I wasn't sure if they just go back to what their game plan was in week 1 when they were playing Kyle Pitts, or if they're going to handle him more with like maybe Terrell Edmonds, Micah Fitzpatrick. I mean, I see people talking about the linebackers. I'm just like, I don't think the linebackers are going to be covering him. I don't think the Steelers are going to operate that way.
Well, here's the thing with that. Actually, let's get to Boston's thing here because now we're switching to talk about defense, and that's where I kind of want to go anyway. But we'll get to this first. If Justin goes for 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, in a Steelers 17-13 win, are you rolling with 2 or seeing what Wilson has left in the tank? So, like, I get throwing the surface level stats out there, but it's kind of hard for me to just see that without like
have to see the eye test.
Play. Yeah, and make a determination. If you're asking me how the team's gonna feel, I'll be honest. I've kind of like just based off what I heard that they were gonna go back to Russ if he was healthy enough for Dallas. I don't think 1 more week's gonna change that. I think we see Russ when he's back.
Yeah, I think if I'm just looking at the surface level stats too, like a box score that Boston gave, I think the Steelers are going to go back to Russ. Like I'm talking like Justin would have to have a 300 plus multi-touchdown, no interception game to make it even a question in my mind if they're going back.
I guess the question too is like, how do we think the team is going to equate the teams that like the team winning, right? So they would be 4-2 at that point. Is that good enough? Like, does that take precedent over how Justin has played individually because of where the team is at? Because like we've seen them kind of talk themselves into. But I'm saying I feel like we've seen the past the Steelers talk themselves into, like you're talking about, things being fine on offense because of what they get from the defense in the past. Like pointing out the winning record of Kenny Pickett or something like that as a reason for him to continue starting.
Yeah, but he had Mitch Trubisky behind him. He didn't have Russell Wilson behind him. And are they winning in spite of him, or are they winning because of him when it comes to Justin Fields? If they're winning in spite of him, then that's more credit to the defense.
I don't disagree. I'm just questioning if the team's going to feel that way. Like, I don't know where they're at.
I think the team probably feels differently than they did in the past with Kenny Pickett. Because, like I said, like you did not have a Russell Wilson to go to. Your quarterback room was completely different. Making the switch from Kenny Pickett to Mitch Trubisky is more of a wash than anything. If anything, a downgrade. So
100%.
We don't know that it's going to be a downgrade going from Justin Fields to Russell Wilson. It could be an upgrade. I think that's the major difference.
Did you know Mitch Trubisky is the only quarterback that started more than 2 games under Mike Tomlin has a losing record?
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What a bum.
I think Byron Leftwich was 0-1, so he had a losing record. Mitch Trubisky was 2-5 as a Steelers starter.
But he beat Tom Brady.
That was in relief, though, right?
I know.
So I don't even know if that.
But he played the majority of the game, right? He came in the first half.
Yeah, but so I think that stat that I threw out there was like start to finish, because he did come in relief in a couple of games that they won. So, but anyway, Jones seemed like he was playing one-handed. So I mentioned before, I think this was on here. With how many podcasts I do, I never know. Other than the elbow thing,
flex.
Other than the elbow thing, he was also dealing with a thumb issue on that same side. So, like, I know that was affecting his punch as well. Like, not only was he not able to extend in the same way, but like the force behind that punch wasn't there, because it's basically like his thumb wasn't useful. I feel like he's been better in pass pro since then. I think being able to shed that brace for that rubber padding, that Jerome Bettis like rubber pad now that he wears on that side. But like the run blocking, and it's not even necessarily like, to me, a thing in terms of the functional strength. He's just like whiffing on assignments right now. Like Derek was pointing this out, and he put up some film of this and stuff from the interior. Very encouraging. I feel like with what you're getting from Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and you got from Sam Allo last week in the run game, like just the interior I thought was very good. So I can see the encouragement for like feeling like the dam's about to break in the run game. But the problem is what you're getting on the perimeter from the tackles. Dan Moore's been okay, but especially Broderick with these swift assignments, and then the receivers' inability to block on the perimeter as well. So it's like hard for them to really establish anything in the run game right now, despite, in my opinion, having a very good run blocking interior offensive line. So we'll see about Broderick. Maybe he continues to get healthier as the season goes on. But certainly I think that thumb is impacting what you're talking about more so than the elbow at this point. Let's talk about the defense, though. You mentioned Brock Bowers, who's had an awesome start to his rookie year, and I feel like he's kind of flying under the radar, probably playing for the team that he is. But he's been awesome to start this year. And to that point about the matchup, maybe we do see like Patrick Queen give attention there, but here's the reason that I feel like it's going to be primarily Deshaun Elliott. With what you have, or in this case don't have right now on the edge opposite TJ Watt, I feel like the way to get pressure on Aiden O'Connell and beat this Raiders offensive line, they're going to have to rush more than 4, in my opinion. Like they're going to actually have to send some blitzes, which they've been one of the least blitzing teams so far in football the Steelers have, because they can get home with 4 more often than not. But I don't know if that's going to be the case now with what you got opposite TJ Watt. So I feel like this is a week where we do see them, use Patrick Queen as a blitzer, send Landon Roberts at times, maybe even dial up some unique things with Deshaun Elliott coming on a blitz, or Beanie Bishop out of the slot, something like that. But I feel like this is the week for the Steelers to get a little bit more exotic, because I think that's the only way that they're going to be able to generate some pressure.
Yeah, I could see that. I think the benefit that you have with covering Brock Bowers this week is you don't have as many individual talents outside of Brock Bowers that you have to worry about. Like,
him and Jacoby Myers.
To relate it to what we dealt with in week 1 against the Falcons when we were having Deshaun Elliott cover Kyle Pitts, you don't have a Drake London. You don't have a Bijan Robinson on this team. Like him and Jacoby Myers listed as questionable in this game, but he's probably going to play, dealing with an ankle injury. I don't think that he's going to be 100%. And then after him, you don't have Devontae Adams playing. And so the receiver room leaves a lot to be desired. And I feel like they're just fast. They're just fast. And the running backs, I mean, between Madison and
Zamir
White. Yeah, like there's a lot to be desired there as far as running back goes too. Like I feel like there's a good opportunity, and I mentioned in the beginning, for the Steelers defense to get back on track when it comes to their third down conversions, when it comes to giving up a lot of the yardage. Haven't given up a ton of point totals still, which is something to be said as a credit to them. But at the same time, like last week in Dallas, Dak threw all over them basically and was able to do it. And I think that this is a good opportunity against an offense that doesn't have a ton of weapons at the skill positions and then has the quarterback issues that they have. I think that this is something that the defense could take advantage of. Does Beanie bounce back this week? Well, I don't think he will be seeing Brock Bowers at all, so that's good for him. And who would be the Raiders slot corner or slot receiver?
Yeah,
DJ
I mean,
Turner?
so Trey Tucker, probably. or they have Jalen Guyton. I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna. But what I was gonna say about this is the quarterback play is not there. I feel like to expose him. Like I don't think you're looking at Aiden O'Connell the same way you were in Dak Prescott. Like Dak Prescott
Yeah.
was able to kind of identify on the field where Beanie Bishop was at and kind of pick on him. To me, it's honestly been more about just like not understanding where he's supposed to be, more than just like him being a bad player. Like, which I understand that that's part of the game is understanding your assignment and stuff like that. I think that's where Beanie struggled so far. I think this team desperately needs Cam Sutton back from a football perspective. Post bye, that's going to happen. You got to kind of get through a couple more weeks here before you'll see him get back on the field. But then I think you're going to see Beanie's role significantly reduced. We knew it was kind of a they were going out on a limb a little bit, relying so much on this guy, an undrafted free agent who I liked, who I thought played very well. But I thought there were going to be some limitations, certainly in coverage. I thought from, a rundown perspective, he could certainly contribute as the rundown nickel for this team. And that's kind of why I talked about, drawing up some ways for him to blitz and stuff, keep him out of coverage by doing so. In terms of him bouncing back, I think the defense as a whole is going to bounce back. I don't know that you'll necessarily see it or not see it on the surface, but I think Beanie's just right now playing over his head in terms of like the role that he's in. I don't think that they should have thrust him into the spot that he's in. I think he's gotten exposed a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. And I feel like something that people got to remember too is that in a few weeks, this team is going to get Cam Sutton back. So that could affect how Beanie Bishop is used going forward. A bounce back week from Beanie Bishop himself, potentially just on the surface level, because like you mentioned, he's not playing Dak Prescott. He's playing Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to give up like 6 receptions for 90 yards and have a nearly perfect passer rating like last week, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So that's where I'm at with Beanie. Mention Aiden O'Connell in there, though. Gardner Minshew bench. It's going to be Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. Different challenge in terms of they're both kind of pocket passers, but Gardner's going to take a lot more risks, which would be, maybe to the benefit of the Steelers, but also that you're prone to give up the bigger play more often that way. Aiden's going to keep it a lot more safe, just try to get the ball out of his hands. To your point, though, that you mentioned earlier, not sure that he necessarily has the playmakers to take advantage of that. It's not like a Tua Tagovailoa situation in Miami where it's getting the ball out of his hands to get it to Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, and all those guys on offense. He's getting the ball out of his hands to Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, who's awesome, Trey Tucker, Jalen Guyton, which those two guys I mentioned with speed. Ideally, you just want to have them run, go routes, but the offensive line's not going to hold up, and Aiden O'Connell's not that type of player to be able to do that. So I think that this is kind of a get right matchup for the Steelers. I'm a bit hesitant in saying that. When you look across the board right now, it's really hard for me to see the path towards the Raiders, like really exposing the Steelers defense in this one. I just don't think they have the weapons at their disposal to do so.
Yeah, last week against Denver, Aiden O'Connell, when he came in relief, was 10 of 20. 50% completion, only 94 passing yards, and he threw a pick, no touchdowns.
94 passing yards on 20 attempts.
Yeah, and obviously, I think that preparing as a starter is going to be different for him, and he could have a better week than what he had last week. But at the same time, I think that there's an opportunity here. There's an opportunity for the Steelers to
defense also preparing for him.
Did I say offense?
No. I'm saying you're right in that he's been able to prepare as the starter, but the Steelers defense has also been able to prepare for him as the starter, whereas Denver.
Well, I thought you meant I said the Steelers offense. My bad.
No.
But no, the defense has an opportunity to prepare for him too. I think that the main thing I want to see from the Steelers defense this week, I need to see the Steelers pass rush get home more than they did against Dallas, because I felt watching the Dallas game, if the Steelers were not getting pressure, that's when Dak picked them apart. And I don't think Aiden O'Connell is going to be able to pick the Steelers defense apart like Dak was able to. But at the same time, the longer that you don't have pressure on the quarterback, the longer he's able to sit there, a guy can get open for him. And so that's what I think that you need to see more of this week, is more pressure from your pass rush, which I know may be asking a lot because we're missing such key pass rushers, but I think that they can do it this week against this Raiders team with the personnel that they have. I think that's what they need to do in order to make Aiden O'Connell way more uncomfortable than he needs to be, because that's how you're going to get under his skin. That's how you're going to make him feel that pressure more, even if it's not hitting home yet. It'll make him more uncomfortable in the pocket and uneasy, and that's what causes the poor decisions from these quarterbacks.
I mean, last year, TJ Watt had a field day against the Raiders, and that was going against Jermaine Illuminor, who's no longer there, was a pretty good player for them. Going into the game last year, I think it was week 4, Sunday Night Football, where Illuminor hadn't even given up a single pressure through the first 3 weeks, and then TJ just absolutely wrecked shop against them. And now they have Thayer Mumford, who's dealing with a bit of an injury as well, potentially is their right tackle. If not, it's going to be a backup. Like, this is, to me, certainly a game that TJ can just completely wreck and change the script of this game on his own. Defense has to quit blowing coverages. Hey, there's Jeff right there. What's up, Jeff? We talked about a comment from a previous episode at the beginning of the show. We appreciate you being in here. Yeah, I mean, that comes down to communication for the most part, I think, right? I mean, Patrick Queen, who's new to the defense and is the signal caller wearing the green dot, I think that he's, thrown his hands up after a ton of plays, like what's going on. Like they're not on the same page right now at the back 2 levels of this defense. Certainly, like, you have Dante Jackson, who's new to the team as well, Deshaun Elliott, who's new to the team. So there's certainly new pieces. I understand they've had all summer to kind of get things together too. But, as far as like game reps go, they've still, in the grand scheme of things, not played together for all that long. So I'm hopeful that with time, what you're talking about changes. But certainly the last 2 weeks have not been good for the back end of the Steelers defense.
Yeah, and I think what I mentioned, those go hand in hand. Like, if you're not getting pressure, your coverage needs to be good. And I think that because you've seen some miscommunication on the back end, when the Steelers aren't getting pressure, that's why someone seems to be always open, is because you have that miscommunication from the secondary and the linebackers about who's supposed to be where. And that's why they're always able to find somebody. But that's why going hand in hand, if you have good coverage, you can get coverage sacks, because your guys up front are eventually going to get home. But at the same time, if you have pressure, it's going to be better for your secondary as well. Obviously, those 2 things work hand in hand. I think that, but I agree with Jeff. They need to find years.
For years, the Steelers weren't investing into their secondary because they had such a good pass rush, and they felt like they could get away with average starters on the back end of things. I feel like now they've actually poured some resources into the back end. When you talk about spending the draft capital and then the money to keep Minkah Fitzpatrick around, a high 2nd-round pick, basically a 1st-round pick on Joey Porter Jr., going out and trading for a guy like Dante Jackson, who's a very good CB2 in my opinion, and then dipping into the free agency pool for Deshaun Elliott, who's been maybe their best player this year so far on the back end. I feel like they've put enough resources in there now to trust that secondary, and it is just a matter of them all getting on the same page, because it hasn't been there yet. You'd think that with the secondary that they have now, they should be able to cover for a lot longer and give this pass rush more of a chance than they have in the past, to maybe take, 3 seconds as opposed to 2 to get to the quarterback or something like that. Speaking of predictions, we'll get into ours, but Mike has one. My prediction: Roberts lays wood, Minshew back in the second quarter. So Landon Roberts going to take Aiden O'Connell out of this football game. Minshew comes back in relief. Based off the one backup quarterback that we've seen this year and how Joey Flacco played in that game, I'm not sure that I necessarily want to see a second quarterback come into a football game, but no. Let's get into our predictions then. I have a very bold one on the offensive side of the ball this week. So I'll just do mine first, because on Steelers Afternoon Drive, I feel like I'm regurgitating information anytime on here when we do predictions, but I always try to think of a new one to throw in as well. My offensive prediction is going to be a non-quarterback throws a touchdown pass in this football game.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That would be a surprise.
Arthur Smith getting in his bag this week. I don't want to broaden it so much where I'm saying a certain player, because if I say Connor Hayward throws a touchdown and then it ends up being somebody else, I'm going to be so upset. Like if Calvin Austin,
then you get no credit
around and throws a touchdown. Yeah, exactly.
Because it wasn't
a non-quarterback is going to throw a touchdown this week. That's my prediction.
That'd be wild.
For the offensive side. On the defensive side, he just had a baby. So Minkah Fitzpatrick's interception streak. Actually, you know what? I'll keep it pretty broad for this too. Minkah Fitzpatrick gets a turnover. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an interception. It could be a forced fumble or something as well. Just had a baby. We know how those games go for guys when they become a new dad. So Minka Fitzpatrick, that 17-game turnover-less streak finally comes to an end on Sunday. And then I was trying to think of one more that I can maybe throw out there that was different. I don't want that one to be right.
Well, now I want to know.
At
least what you were thinking of.
I was just saying we see Russell Wilson.
Oh, yeah. If we see Russell Wilson, unless it's like, I'm knocking on wood right now, unless it's to injury, I don't think that's something you. I mean, no matter what, you don't want to see it, but it's either going to be because of an injury or the Steelers are playing that bad. So I don't think you want to see it either way.
Right. That was the other thing that's coming to my mind, though. So,
what about a score?
We'll go 20-13. Steelers win.
Don't do that, Smitty.
Boston's going to be at the game. Yeah, he doesn't want to see Russ. Here we go. Mike's got the non-quarterback throwing touchdown play right there.
Pickens on a jet sweep toss to this.
Washington.
That'd be cool.
If Pickens gets the opportunity to throw the ball, he's probably just going to throw it to the other team out of spite. Nah, not really.
The lack of effort goes into his pass as well and just throws it to the other team. Actually, he just does a handoff. Acts like he's in the backfield, turning around for a handoff. Najee has 2 TDs. Oops, I clicked that away.
Steelers win 24-13. Pickens, Muth, and Najee touchdowns.
I would love if Najee has 2 TDs. I still don't know how healthy he is this week. Wow, that room is messy. Yeah, there is this is like the tip of the iceberg. There's just a bunch of baby stuff.
Plenty of time to clean it. Oh, so it's not going to get clean. That's all stuff that has to stay there for now.
That's all stuff that has to mainly stay there, but to get taken out of boxes and put a lot of clothes away. A lot of it's clothes too. It's just baby stuff. I thought it was reverse jet sweep.
A reverse jet sweep. All right.
I like that. That'd be pretty cool. Honestly, I love all these predictions. Too much blue in that room, to be honest. Hey, Bauer or Boston, how about those Utes last night, huh?
What did they do?
They lost to the Sun Devils.
Oh, geez.
Shout out to our boy Richie. Go Sun Devils. Today's job, yeah, that's your job. I'm not doing it.
This was
Steelers win. I like that one.
I like it. Yeah.
I like that one the best. Okay. Did you give a score? I feel like we just got
20-13. 20-13.
20-13. Okay. I am going to say that my offensive prediction is that we see another Pat Freiermuth touchdown. Gets on a streak 2 games in a row.
6 weeks.
I also think that Jaylen Warren is going to get a touchdown in this game as well. He's coming back. He's healthy. Yeah. I think he finds the end zone this week. Defensively, I think Patrick Queen gets an interception. And maybe it does come in coverage of Brock Bowers. But I think Patrick Queen is going to get an interception. He's going to get a splash play that endears Steeler fans a little bit more because a lot of people are not impressed with his performances lately. I think he's going to have a good game.
You're shutting up a lot of critics with the performance that you're expecting here. You got a running 100%. Back short a touchdown, Jaylen Warren. You got a Patrick Queen interception.
Yeah, 100%. And then score prediction, I'm going to say the Steelers win 18-10.
Okay. So they're going for 2 on one of those.
You figure out the math yourself. I just say the score. That it's up to the team to get to that score.
All right. Well, no, I think they have to go for 2 on one of those touchdowns and then kick a field goal is the other.
Either that or they kick 6 field goals. And my other predictions are wrong.
But I was just saying, then that would make the 2 touchdowns that you factored in there wrong. But
hey, maybe the reverse jet sweep isn't on a touchdown. It's actually on a 2-point conversion.
There you go. Last thing we'll get to before we get out of here. When is Devontae coming to save us? This is very good news for the Steelers that Devontae Adams was not traded prior to playing us. This is exactly what we needed to have happen, in my opinion. And also, this past week, a lot of good things happened for the Steelers in terms of the Davante Adams sweepstakes, with the Jets firing their coach, because I think that there's just too much attention right now focused on other things for them to go out and get a receiver. And the Saints losing Derek Carr for multiple weeks. Are they really going to go out and get Davante Adams with that being the case? All I'm saying is I know that they've had a third-round pick on the table. They would 100% trade a third-round pick yesterday for Davante Adams if that could get it done. We'll see if anybody coughs up a 2. If all it ends up taking is a 3, I don't know if they would view the Steelers as having the highest 3. I think it's possible. I think it's very possible that Davante Adams is a Steeler next week. I'll say that.
Why don't they just file the paperwork after the game? The minute it's over.
Let him come home on the flight with us.
Submit the paperwork. He can come home. Well, actually, no, he probably needs to go pack. But maybe they already have that handshake agreement that afterwards. Maybe he's packed already, and we just don't know about it. So I think that it could happen. I think it should happen. The opportunity this week looks good.
I mentioned that was the last thing, but it's not, because Ray, I don't know if I've seen Ray in here before, and he asked a pretty good question here. Outside Crosby on the D-line, who do the Raiders have that scare you on defense? Nobody. Christian Wilkins is on IR, so he's not in the middle of that defense, one of the best along the defensive line in the league, but he's not healthy now, going to miss at least 4 games for them. Seems like it's going to be even longer than that. Yeah, I mean, Robert Spillane's obviously been a great fit for them. Like, he's the only guy in that defense that really wants to tackle, it looks like. Everybody else seems to be a little bit afraid of making contact, which is why they're so bad after the catch. They have guys that I think have good ball skills that you got to be weary of where they're out on the field. Trevon Merritt on the back end, one of my favorite safeties when he was coming out. I mentioned Nate Hobbs, who's a pretty good safety. Jack Jones, you can get, like, he gets beat, but he'll get you too. Like, he's a he's a little bit of, he's like a Trevon Diggs light. Like, people obviously see how many interceptions he gets, and Deron Bland last year would fall into that same category, but also he's going to give up a ton of yards in coverage as well. So I think you need to be wary of where he is on defense. There's some other decent players, but I mean, those to me are the guys that stand out, and not necessarily stand out in terms of like the talent league wide. It's just when you're looking at this defense specifically, where there is a lack of talent, those are the players you need to be conscious of.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much of an impact Robert Spillane is going to have in this game, because the Steelers have kind of struggled to run the football anyway, and Spillane's had a good start to the season, good fit in with the Raiders. Like, if Najee is going to continue to be more of the bell cow in this game, how much of an impact is Najee going to have if Robert Spillane's covering him the entire game?
Yeah, I think without Christian Wilkins, though, like, they can make that null and void. Like, you're talking, if Robert Spillane's the one tackling Najee, but it's like 6 yards down, 6 yards, that's fine. Like, he could be the one that tackles him. I just don't think that he's going to be able to make a ton of plays shooting the gap, because I think Najee's going to be able to get to the second level when you look at what's there on that first level right now. Boston's prediction is Adams going to the Bills. Certainly in play, too. I honestly think, if you ask me a top 3 right now, I mentioned the Jets, the head coach thing. Maybe that's some hopium from me that they're just out of it. They're not going to be out of it because of Aaron Rodgers there and Davante Adams wanting to go there. I do think that the Saints are kind of out of it now because of Derek Carr's injury. So I'll say the top 3 is going to be the Jets, Bills, Steelers. Not necessarily in that order, but
here's some math for you as well as how they can get to 18. Touchdown, safety, 3 field goals.
Okay.
But I do like yours. Here's what's going to happen. I'll tell you how they're going to get to it. Pat's going to score first. He's going to be the opening touchdown scorer for the Steelers. Then on the Jaylen Warren touchdown, there's going to be a penalty on the defense that allows them to go to the 2-yard line. Then they're going to go for 2, and then they kick a field goal. There it is. That's how they're getting there.
Okay. Who gets the 2-point conversion? Is it going to be a field?
It's going to be George Pickens on the reverse sweep.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. That's true. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. What was your score?
18-10.
18-10, that's right. I knew it was 18. I couldn't remember what you said for the Raiders. All right, good stuff. If you are watching this live or watching it back, we appreciate you being a part of this. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss an episode of the normal podcast, a clip that's posted throughout the week, or, of course, Steelers Saturday SitDAHN. We'll be doing one of these next week as well before the Jets come here for Sunday Night Football. The following week is Giants Monday Night Football, and then we head into the bye. But looking forward to this upcoming stretch. Steelers need to bounce back in a big way against the Raiders following 2 consecutive losses. hope that they can certainly do so. Be sure to follow us on everything at Around the 412. Again, we thank you for tapping in. Steelers Saturday Sit Down with Around the 412. We'll see you next week.